how working in the fields or the industries your ancestors were working in can really help you to integrate more of who you truly are, know exactly where you came from so you know where you're going in the future, but it can also help you to really ground further into yourself, into your own being, which can of course be a layer to eventually review your own soul's journey and path in life. So once again, welcome for another video at Germanic Wellness. And over the last 6, 7, 8 years, I've been really using this YouTube channel for my own exploration, for discovering my own spiritual path in life. I've been living in England for the last 10 years, and the last year I came back to the Netherlands to really reconnect with my own roots. And this really started to open up a whole new adventure for me to really dive further into my ancestral line. Like, where did I really came from? So why is this now more important than ever, to really dive further into your ancestral line, to see where you actually came from? Because what we see today, it's I don't really want to sound very depressing, but I think for those who are really opening up their minds, their third eye, they can really see is that we live in a time of so-called psychological warfare. So what exactly do I mean with that? Is that the kind of messages that we are receiving in the media, it always feels like with a tone of manipulation and gaslighting. Like, for some of us, like we are supposed to be confused about our identity, about where we came from, what we were always believing in, because this is now false. Now there is a new wind of information coming in, that if we don't consent and if we don't adapt or conform, then we are the ones that are at fault. So what we see is kind of like a whole movement from the left liberal organization that is bringing in information that for us it can feel we need to tiptoe around many easily offended snowflakes who have some sort of opinion about the world and who they think they are, but then they come across like they are the ones who are highly confused about their identity and whatnot. Another aspect is the kind of trends we are going into of the financial system. Is for many of us, it feels like the financial system is currently being so-called weaponized against humanity to keep them into a lower state of fear-based, survival-based consciousness, of always like just going to the work, to the job, come home, feel exhausted and distract himself in artificial stimulation, entertainments and whatnot, and these distractions can go over into addictions. Another thing is, of course, like our nature, our own human nature, our spirituality, our biology between the masculine and the feminine is currently being split off. It's like we are being cut off from our roots because of the isolation and the individualistic way of life we are currently living. That's another thing that is kind of like messing up our psyche, that can really uproot us, like really disconnect us from feeling a sense of grounding within ourselves. Like, whatever's going on in the world, I know exactly who I am, where I stand for and what I came here to do, and I know exactly what my purpose here is on earth. Another thing that's coming up are, of course, the new revolutions and evolutions in technology, artificial intelligence, and this feeling of isolation and individualistic way of life, is that humanity is moving more into virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and as our mind becomes more plugged into technology. We already see it, like, you know, our movements is currently being overly charged by taxes and whatnot, and movement, the freedom of movement, of mobility, it probably will only be left for the rich. So for many of us, we see that, you know, traveling becomes like unaffordable for many, driving a car and all of that kind of things. So this is kind of what we see as well. Another element is kind of like social control over our finances, what we buy, what we don't buy, what we consume. So this might be another trend that we see coming ahead. Now, all of these things that I just mentioned very broadly, it kind of like makes us feel a little bit uprooted or displaced within ourselves. There's some kind of threat coming in, like we can't really grasp our mind around it, but we feel it is a threat. It is somehow we feel powerless, we feel exhausted, we feel anxious about it, we can't do anything about it. The younger generation already feel no hope at all for the future, because for them, you know, the financial system is, once again, it feels like it's an empire they are looking up towards to, and it's a threat that they can't beat. So for them, it's an incredible feeling of feeling displaced within themselves. So coming back to the topic of today's video, how moving back to working in the fields of or the industries that your ancestors works in. You may think, well, you know, I don't want to do that. I want to find my own way in life and all of that. Look, I get it. And that's why I want to share a bit of my own personal story so far, as a way to give insights on really what it can do for you in order to feel more grounded and rooted within your own being and your own nature, and that can be like a foundation to build upon even further. It's to feel more empowered. So to come back a little bit, my story, and once again, it's not really about me. It's really about, you know, use it as a way for taking on insights that you want to take for yourself. So when I was about 17 years old, I came out of high school. I had zero idea of what it is that I wanted to do. I had two options: either join the Dutch Marine Corps, because I was already a fighter. I had so much of anger and aggression in me that I thought, well, this makes the most sense to do. I was already like doing a lot of extreme sport like boxing, kickboxing, and all of that. So I thought I was pretty fit in order to go and embark on that journey. But instead, I went to college. I started shipping and logistic management because that was another option that simply made most sense to me. Now, the Marine Corps, they have been established during the 17th century, when the Dutch were in the 80 year of trade war with other European nations, and that's why they needed a special soldier who was able to get from a ship onto the shore in order to fulfill their operations. And they actually invented this by Admiral Michiel de Ruyter, who was a very famous Dutch hero back in the day, because they had to operate a mission on the Medway in England in order to cause a massive hit to the English Navy and steal one of their major flagships. But I didn't know back then. You know, I thought makes the most sense. Then I started shipping and logistic management, but throughout my college years, it already made most sense to me to start a little side hustle, start a little business along the side, make my own money, and all of that stuff. So entrepreneurship, that really came for me from a very young age. Then I graduated, and it was like very easy for me to find a job in a shipping company. It was already like they were waiting for me, basically. So when I was working there, I started to struggle with depression. I felt kind of like a sort of depression, like I'm not really sure if I really belong here and all of that, and I really started to move within myself. Then I got really angry, and I'm like, you know, I'm not meant to be an employee in a large organization. I am meant to work for myself. And that's when I attracted books in my life like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and other books around, you know, finance, entrepreneurship, marketing, wealth generation, and all of that stuff. So I knew that I had to move from the left side of the quadrant towards the right side of the quadrant and become my own business owner. And although I thought this is the best option, I first went into custom consultancy. I thought it would be the next step for me, but I realized, like, you know, I'm moving up, but the only thing I'm going to do is pay more taxes on top of my income. It's pointless. I already saw the system is rigged when you start working here in the Netherlands. So that's why I made the decision. I got to go and work for myself and start an internet business, learn about internet marketing, affiliate marketing, network marketing, and all of that stuff. Which took me about 2.5 years before actually things started to take off for me. And my motivation was like, I wanted to prove my worth through accomplishments. Like, I had an incredible drive in order to seek for some sort of validation. Back then, I didn't really know that within my family line, within my family lineage, there were patterns of narcissism coming in as well, which I had to look into for myself in order to heal, clear, and overcome these type of patterns. And once I was starting to break through with my internet business, I was making about 10,000–15,000 euros a month. I was traveling, working, living a bit like a digital nomad, bought a nice cars and all of that stuff. Then things really started to hit for me. Like now I have that, but I still feel an enormous emptiness within myself, an enormous void that I can't seem to fill up with, you know, status, success and all of that. And at the moment I got the validation like, son, I'm proud of you, everything fell apart and basically I burned out. Moved to London, which is not a story I'm not going into, but my whole energy completely went out of balance and the whole dynamic within me got completely sidetracked. Because I was feeling so lost when I was living there, I started to seek for counsel from different kind of therapists, like medium, psychics, doing past life regression, going into shamanism, going into ancestral healing, soul retrieval, Reiki, and all of these beautiful things. And that's really when I came to the conclusion, like, wait a minute, you know, Blommaert has a lot of energy. It has an energy that is actually coming from a merchant trader who came from Antwerp, and eventually he started to work for the Dutch VOC, Verenigd Oost-Indische Compagnie, East Indian Company, and eventually he didn't like what was happening in the East Indies, the kind of violence and aggression that happened there, the colonization around Indonesia. He said, I'm going to steal one of the ships from the VOC and I'm going to start my own trading routes with the West Indies. Which he eventually done, and eventually he started to colonize parts of North America together with Sweden. So that was like one ancestral line that I discovered, like, hey, wait a minute, you know, I come from the lineage of traders, merchant traders, entrepreneurs, for those who really wanted to go after wealth, status and power and all of these type of dynamics. But the West Indian Company has always been a little bit in the shadow of the VOC. And that's why there's like an other kind of pressure that exists within that dynamic. For many years I didn't want to get back into the maritime industry, the shipping industry, because you know, I had this delusion about myself, like I gotta be a top of the pyramid scheme, I need to have my own business in order to be someone, otherwise I am a nobody. And I carried this pattern within me for a very long time. Last year I came back to the Netherlands because I decided I need to reconnect with my roots, to rediscover who I really am, where I came from and what I had to do here. And I already had like some kind of a vague vision, like perhaps I need to, you know, move further into ancestral healing and learning more about our roots and where our history is coming from, both for maritime history but also our Germanic ancestors, which is pre-Christian era, because of course Christians and Catholic has been, of course, been brought over by the Roman Empire back in the day. But before that we were basically like pagans who were like practicing different shamanic rituals in order to connect with different kind of spiritual or with gods or deities, and we felt like deeply connected with nature and the elements and the sea. And since I'm here, first of all, I found a place to live in an old townhouse from the 17th century here in the center of Middelburg. And of course Middelburg already has so much of history, which already started in the year of 800, because the first settlements was basically like a monastery to protect the locals against the Viking raids. So we already had major influences back in the day. And of course this medieval town really started to grow as a trading hub or a trading center, because of course it was still like located very closely to the Schelde, the Westerschelde, the river that connects us with Antwerp. And Antwerp was of course another maritime hub, together with Vlissingen and other towns like Goes, Veere, Zierikzee. So Zeeland really has been a very important region hundreds and years ago. Also really way before pre-medieval time, throughout the Germanic times. And the last year, first of course I had to kind of like land back on my feet, because I was coming back from London with only a suitcase and a car that I brought over from England, which of course I had to sell as well, because that car has an UK registration plate, so I couldn't keep it here, unfortunately. But I only came here with a suitcase and I had to start completely from scratch, from the beginning. So of course, you know, if you're living here in the Netherlands, finding a place to live is already a challenge on its own, because you probably end up at a private rental market, which are ridiculous prices. So that's why I started to work for a shipbuilder here in the Netherlands who are building super yachts for the uber rich. And I was able to do loads of working shifts, which really brought in some money. But then I realized, like, you know, this is really killing me, because I'm doing night shifts and really early shifts, like waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I gotta go in and find something better. And then I started to work once again in the maritime shipping industry, but this time as a marine surveyor. So working very, very closely with the water on board of ships, doing vessel inspections, draft surveys, and moving back here into this type of industry, it kind of really helps me to reconnect with my roots, with my nature, and what my ancestors came from. This could be another aspect of true embodiment of our true nature, our true authentic self, which could be a foundation to build things upon. I think right now it's very, very important to learn about our ancestors, because once again, to reconnect with the soul and the spirit of your lands, of your country, of your culture, but because everything right now seems to be under attack. Like the Netherlands is not longer a sovereign state anymore. It's not longer a republican. It's not where hard work is being rewarded, because hard work will be taxated for the king and to the kingdom, who does whatever they feel they please to do. Another thing, what we see is so many countries are currently being sold, their spiritual soul has been sold to a globalism or a global empire, which we see right now is happening. So our culture and heritage and spiritual heritage is currently massively under attack. So moving into things around ancestral healing, past life regression, reconnecting with your roots, I think becomes more important than ever in order to feel very, very grounded and rooted within ourselves. So no matter what is happening to the world, we could defend really what we stand for, which could bring a sense of personal empowerment. And this could also help us in our daily life, personal life, overcome senses of resistance of who you actually really are, and that could also help you to, you know, find some sort of financial success or success in your relationship, feel more healthier because you're overcoming all your emotional resistance against who you are as a person, and this will help you as well to carry yourself in the world. So in case you have any further questions, please let me know. I would love to continue to share more about that. And furthermore, I will dive much further into these topics like ancestral healing, our Germanic history, Nordic, Germanic paganism, shamanism, animism, and of course also really honor and value and recognize our maritime history that we see here in the northern parts of Europe, in the Netherlands as well, because this is something that needs to be preserved, otherwise it will get lost on the threats that we are currently facing. Alright, I'll leave it with this one. I look forward to see you on my next videos. Take care for now.